good afternoon. My name is Schneider. I am also going to introduce myself as we're improvising a little bit this afternoon. This first slide will help with that. I'm part of the offices of the Expert Council of German Foundations on Integration and Migration. It is an independent think tank and research institute, mainly grouped around a body of experts, council members, 9 professors from different disciplines from Germany and beyond, various disciplines and academic affiliations. They produce and write an annual report every year on the situation of migration and integration in Germany, including a lot of research-based recommendations to policymakers, taking into account state-of-the-art research such as the German election studies and the results just presented, but also others, sometimes focusing on European migration policy, sometimes focusing on domestic perspectives. I'm heading the research unit within our offices. That's the green publications. If you visit our website, it's a separate pillar of the organizations, and we're trying to cover aspects and topics beyond the huge annual report that the experts are issuing, including mid- and long-term research studies between 1 and 3 years, but also policy papers and policy briefs on various issues, such as you see here, Muslims in the majority, within the majority population, but also on the voting preferences of the migrant population and so forth. A lot of our results are based on our main own empirical research instrument, which is called the SVR. SVR is the acronym for our organization, the Integration Barometer. And the Integration Barometer, and I will use my about 10 or 12 minute slot here to give a short introduction into that instrument, because it fits well to the debates we had yesterday on various instruments on how immigrant societies can be monitored, and not only with regard to hard structural factors such as labor market participation, educational participation, and so forth, but also towards the so-called soft factors of social coherence, if you wish, of the well-being of people at local level, be they with or without a migration background. So the barometer is a representative public survey carried out biannually. We're right now in the field in the process of gathering data for the 2020 report, which is due at the end of the year. It's one of the largest representative immigrant surveys in Germany. It's based on computer-assisted telephone interviews. More and more, and it has been measured in some, has been mentioned in some of the contributions earlier. More and more, we're seeing problems with a turnout. I mean, the rates sort of are lowering, and constantly we're debating whether what we could change, how to perform better. But at some point, there probably would be no alternative to face-to-face interviews, which nobody can finance, at least not in the size of that. So. We're in the last survey, the 2018 survey, we had about 9,000 respondents, the majority of which was with a migration background. Migration background goes by the statistical definition used in Germany, either first or second generation migrant with a non-German nationality background. We had an overrepresentation of the migrant group, allowing us to differentiate different origin groups. I'll get back to it. The unique feature is that adding to the structural integration indicators we have from different surveys, from authoritative data, the barometer captures the perceptions and the expectations of both sides, what we call both sides of the immigration society. So it features elements of perceived discrimination, social integration, but also political participation, and the thoughts and the living together of in the neighborhood at local level. I just mention the interesting part is probably with regard to the, where's the pointer? No. Anyway, the interesting part is probably the different groups we can differentiate. As mentioned by Sabrina, one of the largest and most important groups is the ethnic German repatriates from Germans from countries of the former USSR. We have the country the origin group of Turkey. We have a separate breakdown for EU citizens, which have come to Germany, or the descendants of whom, after the year 2000, to sort of give an idea of those relatively new group of preferential immigrants, if you wish, who benefit from free mobility. And we have, of course, the remainder, the rest of the world group. And in the last survey, we were able to identify a subgroup of refugees according to a selected number of countries of origin. Just a brief look at how diverse the immigrant population in Germany has turned out between 1970 and 2016. It's just illustrating that by being able to have a breakdown into some of the major groups might still not be enough, and we definitely need qualitative research. So this is not really to study, but to give you an idea how colorful the landscape is. And we hardly have any origin groups in a two-digit size. So it's only Turkey at this point in time in 2016. Well, this is actually pretty straightforward. I'll try to be quick for the sake of brevity and maybe for some time for discussion. On the methodology, as I said, we can analyze the data set according to the 5 main subgroups of origin. The interviews are conducted in various languages. Similar phenomenon, apart from the relatively newly arrived migrants, particularly those from refugee countries. Most of the respondents prefer to use German. The data set is representative for Germany and is adjusted to the real population using weighing factors from the general surveys that are available. For the first time in the current edition, there will be a regional representativity according to the 16 German federal states, which has been quite an ambitious endeavor that also Andreas Süß had a role in, because he, as a member of a federal state administration, pushed hard for that regional distribution. So here you can see the ratio of people with a migration background in the 16 German federal states, and what you see is the East-West divide, which is, of course, due to the recent history of the two Germanys, where you can see that it is particularly hard methodologically to get enough turnout for this, and we're seeing this right now, actually being in month 2 or 3 of the survey, and getting enough turnout in Eastern Germany beyond the city of Berlin, where it's relatively easy. The core index of the SVR Integration Barometer is the so-called Integration Climate Index, which had been composed by the council members, I think, as long as about 8 years ago, in the first or second edition of the Integration Barometer. And it's an index of 16 different items on the attitudes that the migrant population and also the dominant mainstream population has, and their experience in different fields such as neighborhood, housing, education, workplace, and so forth. And it's supposed to measure the quality for various integration processes within Germany. The index goes from a scale from 0 to 100, and it's a bifurcated system of answers. So we have a 4-scale answering, giving a tendency towards the better or the worse. 50% and above would be a rather positive climate, and below would be rather negative climate or attitudes with regard to the individual items. As I said, it's in different areas of integration and living together: community, labor market, social ties, and education. So very briefly on the results before I'm going to move to the participation issue, for which we don't have results yet, but some of them to expect. We see that the integration climate index is relatively stable at the level of in the mid-60s. We see it according to the different origin groups here. We see a bit more of skepticism in the group of Turkish origin citizens, and also if you compare the population with and without migration background, a bit more skepticism among the mainstream population. The most interesting result actually is that over time, of the last 6 years, I would say, this index has hardly changed in its values. Sorry, one more slide. At the level of gender, we see, I think, a result that has been reported in other studies and in the literature, that men tend to be more negative, or put it the other way around, women tend to be more positive about the integration climate, be it among the migrant or the non-migrant population. And what we also see is that in the eastern part of Germany, there are among the non-migrant population, so the traditional German population, there's higher skepticism towards the integration climate, which can almost exclusively be explained by contacts and contact opportunities. As you saw in 2 slides earlier, we have that very low representation of migrants in the East, with the highest, as we know, level of racism and incidents reported, but also the lowest level of confidence into a positive integration climate. So this really goes along with opportunities to meet and connect, and we also ask for these opportunities in the survey. However, over time, the values remain relatively constant. The overall integration climate index remains relatively constant in the mid-60s, despite the fact that after 2015 there have been, as you all know, media debates on the end of the integration country. We had incidents, terrorist incidents. We had very popular in the German media, I think on New Year's Eve of 2016, we had the incidents in Cologne, which really, according, if you read the media, really was detrimental to the integration climate, but even the integration barometer after these events showed hardly too much effect. So the bottom line of that is that the portrayals of the media does not really reflect the actual individual perceptions and realities of the general population in their everyday life, because it is much broader, and we always focus on isolated phenomena, which are then sort of scaled up very much through media. So that was one of our main messages in the last 3 or 4 years, which we, I think, try to establish also in sort of a counter media reporting towards that frenzy that was out there in a way. This is going to be my last 2 slides.
You have 2 more minutes.
I have 2 more minutes, perfect. I can relax. This is sort of an outlook on the Integration Barometer 2020, which is right now out in the field. There will be in one section a focus on political and societal participation beyond voting, and I think this might be sort of the interesting aspect to bring into our debates, hopefully later on, and also the general debate, because as you know, other than in Norway, the foreign population in Germany is not allowed to vote, apart from the EU member states who are allowed to vote at local level. Third country nationals do not get the right to vote in case they don't naturalize. So other forms of participation, engagement, citizen engagement, and societal participation become relevant in terms of the whole picture of how do hard integration indicators combine with the soft and much more important areas of integration, which are most of the time responsible for the results we have on the integration climate. So what we are asking ourselves for this round of the Integration Barometer, and which will be subject of a publication due also at the end of the year or maybe at the beginning of next year is in how far can people with a migration background enjoy their rights for political and societal participation, and which are fostering conditions and circumstances. Of course, this is not a longitudinal survey, we don't have repetitive respondents, so this really gives limitations to causal relationships here, I'm aware of that. However, at the descriptive level, we're still lacking a lot of insight here. Are there differences between the different origin groups that we can display from the survey? And we also included, beyond organizational political participation, some questions on volunteerism and on membership in organizations. So this is just to give you an idea what is in the, I just translated them this morning because I adapted my presentation a little bit, so this is not the items as they are asked in the English translation, it is my translation, but you get an idea of what the content is. As you see, it's also about, we also included, this was actually the last one in 2018, a political efficacy scale on whether people have trust in their ability to be politically active at all, and whether they think that politicians and the political system is responsive to them. This is a number of items we have not yet fully explored from the data of 2018. We also have, for instance, an item which asks people's confidence in whether they can achieve anything they are striving for, whether they are limited. This is, of course, related to discrimination. Apart from the fact that we ask for discrimination experiences in different areas, we also ask them if they, as long as they were German citizens, took part in the general elections. Then we asked on political activity as such, so beyond voting, what can be considered political activity? I know we could debate about that for a long time. Joining a political discussion, does that already display political activism? Maybe not, but certainly joining a demonstration or contributing to the work of a citizens' initiative or a political party. We ask for the frequency of that engagement, but we also ask for that is related to another huge project we do on migrant organizations and the way they develop in Germany, whether people are part of such organizations and how often they are active in these organizations. And last but not least, voluntary or honorary engagement beyond being a member of an organization is also considered important. We have a large survey in Germany, I think it's carried out every 5 years or 6 years, the, how's it called, Bundesfreiwilligen survey, the volunteer survey, but this does not really allow for the breakdown of origin groups. We adapted some of the items from there and hope to get some results and insights, and sort of maybe this could contribute to the voting and election-oriented research that you guys do to include more of the soft aspects and facets of political and societal integration, which are important in immigrant societies such as Germany. Thank you.